Hello and welcome to the effects of the global pandemic and the pool industry. We're just gathering in a few last attendees. We'll get started at straight up 1 o'clock here Central Time, 2 o'clock Eastern. So we'll get going in just a few seconds. Bear with us. I've got 1 o'clock straight up, and we like to start things on time here. So we'll get started. We've got a lot to talk about today. A tremendously interesting topic that I don't think has been discussed really sufficiently in the trade press. And we have two distinguished guests with us who are going to tell us some things about just the effects of the global pandemic on the pool industry and the supply chain. My name is Scott Webb. I'm editor of Aqua Magazine. I have with me Damon Wiggins, who is the business unit leader, vice president of the pool business and Pentair's consumer solutions segment. Damon joined Pentair as the global director of supply chain in the process technologies GBU in 2010. Prior to working at Pentair, he held leadership roles at companies including Philip Morris, Mars, and Ingersoll Rand. Thank you for joining us today, Damon. It's great to have you.
Scott, thank you for having me.
We also have Fernando Correal. He is the supply leader for the Pentair Pool BU. He joined Pentair in December 2019. Fernando previously held multiple leadership positions at United Technologies, HTC, Sony Ericsson, and Ericsson. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here, Scott. Thank you.
We've got a lot to cover, and I'm really anxious to get into that. But I did want to mention Pentair had some big news just came out about the acquisition of Pleatco, a famous name in the company. Are you guys pretty happy about that?
Scott, we're extremely excited about that. Today we were able to complete the Pleatco acquisition, and we're really excited to have them a part of the family. This is a nice opportunity to expand our aftermarket filtration space, and they bring really nice innovation that fits well in the Pentair portfolio. So I had a chance to spend some time with the team today, and they were really excited to be a part of Pentair, and I think we've got a beautiful and bright future ahead of us.
To me, it's a great story. I've followed their development for 15 years or so, and they really have developed as a research company and an innovator and a marketing innovator. They've launched, many people are familiar with the Pleatco Perfect Pool Guy and Pool Gal contest. And they have really innovated all along, and to me, I see this as the culmination of all that, is joining a company like Pentair, also known for its innovation. So kudos to you guys. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited about it and know that we're going to have some great opportunities to work together to drive future business and future growth. So a great marriage between the two companies.
Definitely. This is such a big topic. I know we're going to run out of time, but we better get started. Damon, I just wanted to ask you first a really big question that the challenge will be to capsulize this. How has the pandemic affected the pool industry?
Well, Scott, the pandemic was interesting on the pool industry, to say the least. In the beginning, the first thing was trying to figure out, were we going to be essential as far as continue to be able to produce? And once that was determined that the answer was yes, there was demand, just unexplainable, extremely high rate of demand. It was more than anything we had seen in the past, and it just made challenging as far as the number of orders and the amount of product that was requested in the industry. But, it's a blessing to be in that space versus the alternative where demand is not coming in. So we definitely saw that as an opportunity to be able to grow in the future.
It has been a blessing, and also it has stressed the industry
Yes.
in the same way. And that's the story that every time you talk to someone, that's what they say. They say, man, 2 years ago, if I would have imagined all of this demand for my product, I'd have been doing a cartwheel. Keeping up with it has,
Right.
has been
Absolutely.
a big job. And so many people find themselves, dealing with that now. Uh, what do you think were the major contributors to this spike in demand that we saw really from the get-go?
So if you really think about it, you had more people staying at home, unable to travel, tourism really reduced significantly. Uh, Kids at home, parents at home, and I've got to find a way to relax, get the kids outside the house, and ultimately, I'm gonna make my backyard my oasis. That really, I heard that resonate with consumers who said, well, man, if I can't go anywhere, I've got to make sure that I make my home a place that I feel good about being and spending time. It was an opportunity for relaxation, rest, and family enjoyment. Because if we're going to be together, we may as well enjoy our time together.
So true. So true.
Damon, if I could chime in there, I mean, just from amongst my circle of friends and family, I mean, the number of people that I know that have decided to invest in pools compared to prior to the pandemic is like night and day. So, I can see it, and when I have, casual conversations with people, they see the same thing. So, we're seeing it at a very local level as well. So it's really remarkable what's happened to our industry.
One
Yeah.
thing I'm asked constantly is, do you think that this will continue after really one day the all clear really will be signaled for the pandemic? And will this be a permanent cultural shift, or will things eventually go back to exactly the way they were before?
So, Scott, I don't think they go back to exactly the way they were before. Now, will we keep this level of demand? I think that may be a bit of a stretch, but I do believe people's perception and the way they want to live life has changed. As I mentioned before, family is important, time is important, and enjoyment, and pools bring enjoyment. We know there's always the maintenance and other things associated with it, but when we're together as a family and friends are over, there's no better time. So I think that's something that people are going to continue to drive for in the future. Is that's the way we want to live life, and I think pools are going to be a part of that for many years to come.
I do too. I totally agree with all of that. Fernando, I was going to get to an issue that is on the minds of all the people watching this webinar right now every day. It's we rate and track pressing issues with the readership, and this is number one, and that is, how has this impacted the global supply chain across industries?
Yeah, no, it's a very important topic, and it's been significant in across many factors. I'll start with the direct impact that it had on our industry, on our business, our operations. In the beginning, when we had to suspend, in some cases, some of our manufacturing lines based on whether or not they were considered essential. That was short term, but we also had to deal with labor shortages, as we needed to comply and put in place necessary contact tracing protocols. Also, there was some hesitation by some folks to come to work because they didn't know whether they were safe or not. Thankfully, we were able to put in place very quickly the necessary measures to keep all of our employees safe, as safe as possible. So that we managed that. But the other thing that has to be taken into account is the impact on social distancing on our manufacturing lines. We had to space out the headcount in different cells without compromising the level of throughput and manufacturing output to keep our products going and maintain our numbers. So that was a challenge in itself. And then, so just switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about some of the other factors regarding the impact of the pandemic on the global supply chain and how it kind of created really, I would say, a domino effect and how it impacted our industry. And the first thing that where I want to go there is with the changing ordering habits across all industries, consumer goods, paper goods, you name it. I think as many of us saw, people started panic buying, which they started stockpiling products more than they ever needed. We also saw a significant increase in online shopping, and that created a stress, that created the logistics network to be stressed, which had some additional impacts on how the timeliness of product getting to our houses or even to our manufacturing lines. That increase in buying, Scott, then obviously led to raw material shortages across many different commodities. In our case, our products are heavily dependent on things like plastics, which in resins, the raw material for plastics, and electronics. So as this demand escalated over time and raw materials became more and more constrained, we saw lead times go out from normally maybe 2 to 3 months to a year and a half. So those challenges is something that we've had to deal with, and many other industries had to deal with. But in our case, because of the increase in demand, it made the situation, I think, quite unique. A couple other points I want to highlight, which are related, are then the logistic delays that we've seen, and we heard about in the news over and over again. Number one, there's a lack of available shipping containers. The big boxes that manufacturers use to put products in Asia and Europe to bring over to the U.S. We've seen a shortage in trucks to be able to get products from the docks to our manufacturing facilities. And then I think most importantly, the backlog that we've seen at the different ports throughout the country, where in some cases as many as 60, 70 to 80 vessels have been lined up outside of Long Beach, for example, to dock. And then and to highlight and to magnify the issue there, once those vessels port or hit the dock, it takes sometimes even weeks for those containers to be unloaded and be put on the trucks or rails to get to the finished destination, to the final destination. So it's been one thing after another, and again, it's really been a domino effect that has impacted our business. Then lastly, the weather impacts and the natural disasters. We've seen operational disruptions in some of the industries that affect our plastic supply, particularly with respect to the hurricanes and some of like the Texas freeze that we all remember back in February. That was essentially adding fuel to the fire. We were already in a difficult situation, and those events created more havoc and additional delays. So despite all that, I'm pleased to say that and proud to say that we've been able to overcome those challenges and be able to have quarter over quarter growth in terms of how much product we ship out the door. Now we understand that it hasn't been enough, and we strive every day to maximize that. But it's really been a domino effect of things leading, one thing after another, resulting in this complex, unique situation that we're in. Because if our demand had remained maybe stable, we probably wouldn't have felt it as bad. But because of the fact that we had two literally opposing forces going against each other, one, our demand going to unprecedented levels, and a supply situation that was as constrained as it's been in at least my career, it's been an interesting year and a half, to say the least.
Yeah, so one thing I would add, Scott, is if we think about in one of the first comments that Fernando made around the facilities and the pandemic, we hadn't been through a pandemic before. So how are you going to ensure that everyone's safe, ensure that we have the right protocols in place, was extremely important for us as Pentair. And one of our values is win right, and we always want to make sure we take care of our employees. So that was one of the first things in the initial startup, we wanted to make sure we had a safe working environment. And we made sure that those things were in place. Even before we started focusing on production and increasing that, that was number one. And once we were able to achieve that, then you can start thinking about capacity expansion, how you meet demand. But we want to make sure we take care of our employees first, and we did.
You know, it's just today that I really, for the first time, imagined what it would be like for a manufacturer. Of course, we all go to retail stores, or we have, you know, maybe people in service industries around us, and we all see what effect the pandemic had on those types of businesses. But very few people, unless you're in manufacturing, understand what it would be like to bring people in to a factory and try to address all of the concerns that people had in this pandemic. And this is the first time I've really thought about how hard that would be for a manufacturer as well. I mean, it's obviously hard for restaurants and it's hard for retail stores, and I kind of can see that. You also mentioned amazing events, and I still can't wrap my head around Texas. I mean, even though I've talked about this for a year, it still blows me away how this incredible freak incident could both spike demand, actually drive demand because all this equipment is ruined, and yet hurt your ability to produce because of the destruction to the resins industry. And I mean, it's just blows my mind. Just you know, the unlikelihood of all of this happening, and yet it did. To add, you know, I think somebody I interviewed once said Texas broke the pool industry. That may be a little exaggeration, but kind of, at least temporarily, certainly dealt it a huge blow. Well, let's start to focus in a little bit more. How is Pentair responding to this tremendous demand and backlog of product requests?
You know, one of the things excuse me, I do want to mention is, you know, I think when you introduced Fernando, he's been with us since 2019. So his introduction to the pool industry was basically the pandemic. Yeah. So, you know, first of all, and before I go much further, I do also want to say, you know, we didn't do this in the beginning, but thank you to all my employees who were able to, through the pandemic, you know, come in and day out and deliver on the production that was in front of them. Without them, we could not do what we've been able to do over the last year and a half. So that's one thing I want to make sure that we say. Secondly, we did, as we say, beef up our supply chain organization. That was one of the first things that we really focused on, adding Fernando and some other team members to our resource group, but then also working with the global supply chain. We had to get closer to our suppliers to better understand what their challenges were, because Scott, it's not just the tier 1 supplier. It then began to be tier 2. What do you need to know about the tier 2 supplier or even a tier 3 supplier that becomes the aha or the surprise that you find out about that you did not know you were going to not get that component at some point. So that's one of the areas we've been focused on tremendously. We have a really strong team in manufacturing around lean, and they've done a tremendous job around capacity increases on various lines. We've looked at how we can be more efficient, build in productivity, and develop ways that we can get more throughput each and every day. You know, and that's a challenge as you're trying to produce as much as you possibly can each and every day. There are not days off where we can say we're going to revamp the line, redo this because we have free time, because that's not available. So I've always kind of equated to you're changing the tires as you're driving the car a bit. So we've been able to do quite a bit of that. And then the other part is us looking at, you know, how we actually ship, how we send demand out the door. And that's a challenge because, you know, in years past, it was, you know, we were known for a really speedy delivery. You deliver in a few days, get the order, and it's out. And our customers depended on that. They were actually used to that. So Pentair not being able to do that on a regular basis after the demand that came in was a challenge. And now our focus was how do we make sure we try to service all of our customers as best we possibly can. And we utilize some analytics and some tools to be able to outline and make sure that we're getting product across the US and across all of our customers, and even globally where we possibly could. But Scott, I'd love to tell you that it all went smooth, but that's not the case. Again, the pandemic was new. It was something we have all learned a lot from, but we built new tools that are helping us be more successful, not only today, but we'll be much stronger as we come out of the pandemic, as we get to somewhat back to normal.
And Scott, I'd like to, kind of follow up on Damon's comment regarding, my introduction to Pentair in that interesting time. And when we started seeing some of the disruptions and some of the surprises from our suppliers that had to, stop delivering, or they were shut down for an indefinite period of time, I saw some cross-functional work within Pentair that really, as a newcomer to the company, really opened my eyes to see, the culture that we have here in terms of being able to roll up your sleeves, work together to get, incredibly challenging projects done. For example, working to qualify an alternative component or an alternative item for a critical part because the main supplier was not able to deliver. I saw things done within weeks that usually take months, and it's been a long time in my career where I see anything like that in terms of that level of collaboration. So that was really neat as a newcomer to the industry and to Pentair to see and be part of, and it just motivates you. That type of collaboration just motivates you to keep working harder to address the next problem one after the other. So definitely amazing to see.
Scott, one thing I would add with that before you move on would be, even with that speed of transition, quality and our focus on quality and reliability did not wane. That remained high on our priority list. So we made sure we did all the appropriate testing, and the engineering team worked tremendously with ops to be able to deliver on some of the things that Fernando just spoke about.
I do have to throw in here that all of my discussions in the industry are always about this topic. And one thing I have heard again and again is, this is basically an unusual, extraordinary time of scarcity that, that is unprecedented in my 21 years. And with scarcity, those who have this scarce item, in this case, pool equipment, heaters, pumps, those people have increased power. If you have one new pump and everyone needs them, you can either, you can do a lot of things that now has more value. And the retailers that I've talked to have been very complimentary to Pentair for the fairness with which they've approached this situation. Anyone can see that there's the opportunity to use that power in different ways to benefit certain customers, but I've heard time and again that Pentair has been very fair about its approach to that situation. And I just wanted to mention that, whether that's been people in Texas that I've talked to or elsewhere. So well done on that. So with everything that's been going on with all these changes, how can we drill down a little bit deeper into how you're responding to customers?
Yeah, so Scott, and you just touched a part of it, and I will touch that and then go a little bit deeper. So first and foremost, the reason around that fairness, Pentair has been in the business and pool business for many years, and we've developed many customers that we try to service each and every one of them. And we've done that, and we've prided ourselves on that for years. Therefore, even if a pandemic comes, our role and responsibility is try to service each and every one the best possible way that we can. And that has been our approach from day one, making sure we love all of our customers and we want to service them the best way possible. We also know that there are many builders aftermarket providers and retailers that have the opportunity to grow in this space. And we want to try to help everyone achieve that goal. So as we continue to move forward, the specifics around what we're doing to drive that is each and every day going after that capacity expansion. The other part is, now that we're reaching a point where snow belt is coming, we know that that's going to slow down a bit, and the sun belt's going to continue. We want to make sure we service appropriately, get the right products with the demand that's needed to those spaces. But the really key to doing that is a closer communication with your customers. And we're having to do a lot more of that. Weekly calls, bi-weekly calls to understand what are your needs? What products do you need? Because one of the challenges that we saw, Scott, is it's not just we need product, we need specific products. And are we making sure that we get the products needed to complete the jobs through distribution to our builders and dealers for them to be successful? That's the work that we're really focused on right now, is getting to that level of detail to be able to understand where to place those specific products, to what regions, to which customers, so that we can satisfy those demands, ultimately to satisfy the end user and give them that joyful experience of getting a new pool.
Yeah, and you touched upon it, just now, how compelling and just core this issue is. You're right, it is what these people in business need to expand. It is the limiting factor in their lives. They look at a chance to grow in their area, and if this is the choke point, that obviously makes it a passionate issue, and I see that passion all the time when I'm talking to people, and managing that is a challenge, I'm sure.
So Scott, I've had the opportunity here recently to feel some of that same passion as I've gotten out in the field and had an opportunity to talk to not only distributors but builders, and they've given me their feedback as to how I could continue to support them and Pentair in a much better way. And we take those lessons to heart and we implement those things, and definitely it's important for us to hear directly where we can be better and continue to expand the places that we're doing well.
That's right.
So what's next for the pool industry? Where is Pentair focused as we look towards the future?
So I'll start and then I'll let Fernando chime in also. The pool industry itself continues to remain strong. We've seen through PK data that growth is going to continue in the future. With the variant coming back, you still see some reduction in tourism, especially outside of the U.S. Fundamentals around financing is in a great place. The fact that home values continue to go up. And, basically what we're also seeing is adding a pool to your backyard is something that's actually creating appreciation in the homes now. And that's great news. It used to be, well, I'm not going to look at that home with the pool. Now you have people looking for that home with the pool. The other piece that is pretty significant is the migration to the suburbs and migration south, which is driving new home builds, especially in places like Florida and Texas, and many of the places that when a home is being built, they're always putting a pool with it. So the industry itself, I think we have a really strong dynamics in front of us as we move forward. So great news for all of us.
And then from a supply chain perspective, we've like Damon mentioned, the increased communication with customers and alignment with customers to make sure we're all on the same page and setting expectations. We're taking a similar approach with our suppliers in terms of the frequency of when we have strategic conversations with them regarding the forecast and answering their questions regarding any volatility in that forecast. So we've learned from this, and we feel that tighter communication, the tighter alignment, especially in the long term, as the lead times for some of these materials have gone out is going to be critical. And we're confident that after all this is said and done, we need to be, and we're going to be a better supply chain, better organization across the board, so that we're better prepared for the next disruption, or just to have that increased agility as part of our DNA and part of our day-to-day process going forward. So yeah, we're excited for the future. We're excited for the growth, and we're doing our part to make sure that we have the built-in responsiveness and resilience in our supply chain to be able to maintain that.
Yeah. The other, Scott, one other thing I would add to that is it's important that we all have transparency. So you think about the builders and our aftermarket group as far as is growth coming. The more transparent that can be, how far our dealer base are booked out, the more insights we have, and we continue to build a supply chain based on the information that they're passing on. So that's a lot of discussions that I'm having, my sales team are having, and touching base to better understand, okay, what does your demand look like in the future, so that we can ensure that the supply chain and our operational capacity supports that type of growth. And that's going to be important for all of us to better understand that and be transparent with one another to make sure we can meet each other's needs that way.
Definitely. I hadn't thought about the migration aspect of this until you just mentioned it, how those states with net growth are such pool building states. I know Florida is having a net growth period, and you go down there and it seems like every single house has a pool with a screened in enclosure in it, and you can just see how that would feed growth immediately. So I agree. I think that's still, I'm glad you guys are tracking that, because that'll be important for planning for the future. We've got time for a couple questions. Has anything like this ever happened before? Is there any precedent to this?
So from my end, Scott, no, I haven't seen anything quite like this. And I think you touched it earlier, with the size of growth, but then also the challenges with the supply chain where, you've got two forces actually pushing against each other at the same time. And I think, that's something that, with that, I haven't seen anything quite like that. Also, having to navigate for many people all of this from their home, and yet seeing growth in their respective employment offices, because one of the things we have to focus on is that the benefits of people that were working from home, many of them had disposable income, and so they were having opportunities where I could still invest in something, either in my home or in my enjoyment, and they were willing to do so. Yet we were in what we felt like a very challenging time where people couldn't do everything that they wanted to do. So no, I've never seen anything quite like this, Scott, and I'm not sure we will in the future in the same way or the same capacity. Fernando?
Yeah, I mean, from a supply chain perspective, this is unprecedented, at least in my career, and frankly, I hope we will see something like this again, at least to this magnitude. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the interconnectedness of different factors playing into each other, like I described, is something which we've never seen, and one thing is leading to another, this is where I think we'll learn from this, and we'll come out of this a better organization. It's for example, like one of the things that we've been able to do is invest in capacity to make sure that we were able to support the higher volumes, and to Damon's point, we're going to use that closer collaboration, that transparency with our suppliers, with our customers, to make sure that we are making those investments in the right time frame, so that we're not playing catch up in the future. We're actually better positioned and to absorb these spikes in demand. So this is unprecedented, and but I feel that we've shown agility, and I think we're going to be positioned to absorb this going forward in a better way.
Scott, one thing that I know we haven't touched a lot on today, but one I think we'd be remiss not to talk about is labor. And, labor, we talk about it a bit in our facilities. One, the wage rates that, continuously go up, not just in our industry, but in all industries. And the challenges that people face to actually get labor that they need to service, whether it's in the service industry, whether it's in the pool industry, specifically in building and aftermarket, or whether it's in our factories, being able to get people to come to work consistently and stay and support us. And that's been a significant body of work that we've had to put in place, identifying, where you have to make sure you're paying at the right or the correct wage to be able to keep your employees, provide an environment that they want to continue to come to work. And for us, really create an environment where it feels more like family and home. So you want to come to work and it's not just seen as a job. So those have been one of the things, and I know we didn't talk a lot about it, but I'm hearing a lot of that also in the industry around the challenges of getting labor to continue to build and support the pool industry.
Yeah, and that remains a challenge and an issue with and so with some of our suppliers. Nothing that hasn't been overcome, and we don't expect to overcome, but definitely something that's been a factor during the past year and a half, on top of the other issues that we've talked about this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. And you were mentioning some of the hot topics that we hadn't touched on. Another that we really haven't gotten into is the inflation rate as measured. I just read this in the Wall Street Journal, close to 6% over their reporting period, which is a spike in inflation. I know a lot of people are seeing that. How has that impacted the pool industry pricing?
So, Scott, pricing in the industry, and not just pool, but it's gone up significantly. So, to get your components that you need for your business, you're going to pay a increase, needless to say. And we know we've been able to get a lot of the products, but it comes at a price, needless to say. Fernando and his team, the global commodity managers within Pentair, continues to look for opportunities to reduce our costs where we can, but ultimately we've had to make some choice around, in order to get this product, you're going to pay a increase in order to get it. So that has been one of the themes, and I think it's been pretty transparent in the industry as we've had to come out with a couple price increases along with other manufacturers, and that has been a challenge. And if you're thinking about from a building standpoint, you've got to keep some flexibility in that in order to be able to absorb some of the price increases as we move forward. But we'll see, and we're working each and every day to reduce some of those where we possibly can. Again, coming up with second sources to create competition. But we know right now, in all reality, it's just not enough supply for everyone, as you see in the automotive industry and other industries, especially around electronic components. And things of that nature. That's where it is really a challenge. So I wanted to at least share that. And Fernando, I'm sure you've got a little bit more to chime in on that.
Yeah, it's been an extremely tough environment from that perspective. As we talk about the building relationships and expanding relationships with suppliers, where we can, we look for opportunities to share some of those costs so that they don't all come to us, but it's definitely the leverage is not on our side, unfortunately. So we have initiatives that we maintain, that we drive to offset some of this inflation. But this year, it's been unlike anything that we've seen in a long time. So something we have to continue to keep that momentum, keep looking outside, thinking outside the box for ways to take costs out. But it's definitely a headwind which we've been managing and probably continue to see for some time.
Yeah, and as a magazine, we're facing the same. We really as a media company, we're in a completely different industry, but yet these issues are all the same. You could just translate them all directly into what we're seeing here at Aqua. So, and people out in the industry. I want to thank you guys for coming. I learned a lot today. You made some points that I just hadn't thought about, and I think about this stuff a lot, but I didn't really think about what it's like from a manufacturer's perspective to deal with all these problems, and I learned a lot. We all have a lot of work to do. Did you have something to?
Yeah, Scott, I want to just say a couple words before we close up. You know, I wanted to say, first of all, as I said in the beginning, thank you to all my employees within the Pentair pool business and for all the work, hard effort, and the sacrifices they've made over the last couple of years. But I also want to thank my customers for their patience and their loyalty that they've been patient with us as we've worked through some of the challenges that we've seen. They've been definitely vocal about how we can be better. I understand that. We will continue to improve. But I thank you for your business. The demand that we have is tremendous. I'm excited about what the business looks like for our future. I hope you, and I just want to convey again a many thanks to all of my customers and through the whole channel that supports Pentair.
Well said. I think that's all we've got for today. We've all got a lot of work to do. I'll let everyone get back to it. Thanks for coming. We did receive some questions during the webinar, and we'll have a look at those, and we'll review those and respond as necessary. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.